Good morning, welcome. We're going to let some attendees come in. Welcome to today's webinar. Good morning, everyone, welcome. Good morning. Good morning, everyone, welcome. We're letting our attendees join in today. Our webinar today is Keeping Students on Track in Mathematics. And it's 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so we're getting ready to get started. We'll let some of our attendees join. Good morning, welcome. All right, well, it's 9 o'clock and we're getting ready to get started. And today's topic is Keeping Students on Track in Mathematics. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Thomas Soria and I'm the Director of School Partnerships at Michigan Virtual. I've been with the organization for 8 years and I'm a graduate of Michigan State University. And my role here at Michigan Virtual is to support K-12 students and staff and administrators with products and services that we deliver here at Michigan Virtual. We have some great guests with us today that will share how they're implementing a new personalized math learning system. But before I introduce our special guests, let's cover some housekeeping topics so that you're able to participate in today's webinar. By default, your microphones will be on mute. And if you'd like to ask questions, please type in the chat box and we'll address those questions when we have a pause in the discussion. The chat option is at the bottom of your screen, and if you just hover over there and click, you can begin typing, and we'll monitor those chats and allow you time for discussion. We will have a Q&A session at the end of our webinar, so if you'd like to ask those questions using your voice, and we'd love to hear your voice, you can raise your hand, and our webinar monitor will unmute your microphone at that point. This meeting is also being recorded, so you're able to share this discussion and these topics out with your colleagues and other stakeholders in your schools. Michigan Virtual was established in 1998 as a nonprofit 501c3 organization. Our mission is advancing K-12 digital learning and teaching through research, practice, and partnership. We work in partnership with Michigan schools and districts, ISDs, the Department of Education, and various education organizations to collaborate and positively affect change in education. Michigan Virtual delivers over 200 online courses for students grades 6 through 12. We have 24 AP courses, 7 world languages. We have a suite of credit recovery, and we also offer EdReady math and English programs. Michigan Virtual also delivers professional development for teachers and administrators, and we have over 300 PD courses through our professional learning portal. And most of those courses come with sketch credits. So check out our professional learning portal for various professional development opportunities. As mentioned in our description, the purpose of today's webinar is to share how educators are using EdReady Math, a personalized learning tool to support students and keeping them on track to graduate. Our outcomes are to demonstrate how learners are using software to target math knowledge gaps and engage in individualized lessons to increase math proficiency. And we'll also share various models at the middle school and high school levels. In the spring of 2017, Michigan Virtual launched 25 credit recovery courses to support students that needed to earn credit for graduation. These courses are instructed by Michigan certified teachers, and Algebra 1 is one of our most popular courses. What we found in our first year is that students that were entering credit recovery math courses were missing foundational skills that were needed to be successful. To support those students, the Michigan Virtual team installed EdReady Math in all 6 credit recovery math courses, and those courses are called Essentials, to help students fill learning gaps prior to jumping into the high school math content. After installing EdReady Math in Essential courses, Michigan Virtual began to offer EdReady Math to schools and districts as a standalone program, helping math teachers and students close learning gaps. So today, we're gonna hear from 4 panelists that are using this software and how they're finding success. And I first like to introduce Ms. Jamie DeWitt. She's the principal at NexTech High School of Lansing. Jamie is an educational leader who has a vision for how teachers can work together to increase student achievement. Jamie supports students while participating in the improvement process, developing programs that target student growth. Prior to being a principal, Jamie was a high school math instructor, serving students both face-to-face and online. She also served as a blended learning coach, helping districts through the state of Michigan use technology as a means of instruction. Welcome, Jamie, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Thomas.
Next, we have two teachers from Marian Public Schools, Ms. Janae McCrimmon and Heather Dighton. Marian Public Schools is a small rural district in northern Michigan and is located between Cadillac and Harrison. Janae has been with Marian Junior Senior High School for 7 years. She is a middle school math teacher. In previous years, she has taught English, science, and social studies. Janae loves math and learning new strategies on how to solve problems. She especially loves when her students have that aha moment. When not teaching, she enjoys spending time with her husband and 5 children. Welcome, Janae.
Thank you, Tom.
And then also from Marian, we have Heather, and she's been a teacher in Marian Public School for 24 years. During this time, she has had the pleasure of working with preschool, kindergarten, 1st, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students. Wow, that's a lot. Heather is currently teaching 6th grade at the Senior High School with science, English, and math classes. Her passion is to help kids see how awesome they are. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
And finally, we have Mr. Chris Conant. Chris began his career with Idaho Digital Learning in 2016 as a professional development specialist. After 17 years in the classroom, Chris had a desire to work with teachers on implementing technology in the classroom. Chris has been a long and enthusiastic advocate of using technology in the classroom and providing professional development as well as supports for teachers. Chris enjoys working with diverse schools throughout the state of Idaho, bringing resources, skills, and pedagogy to assist in improving education. Good morning, Chris, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you.
All right. So now that everybody's been introduced, I'm going to stick with Chris, and I'm going to ask, Chris, tell us a little bit about Idaho Digital Learning. And you guys have been using EdReady Math and their programs, and, well, I guess, how does it work?
Well, first, a little bit about Idaho Digital Learning. We're founded in 2002. Legislature signed us into law, and so since then we've worked on providing access, equity, and flexibility for students across Idaho. Idaho, if you're not familiar with, is very spread out and very rural. So meeting those needs of all the students across the state has always been top priority. So as we delve into some of that, making sure there's equity across all students across Idaho, with our membership, we wanted to delve into mastery in our online courses. So with those online courses, as many of you may know, there's a lot to it. There's initial diagnostics, there's resources, meeting needs for students wherever they're at. So trying to come up with a way to do that is very daunting if you're doing it all by yourself. So that's why we chose to try putting EdReady in 4 of our math courses. So there are 4 high school math courses that we have that students will take a diagnostic and then work through the materials along with teacher's guidance. That's a little bit about our online courses. And then we've also started with the vast resources within EdReady. We've also rolled out some college preparatory assessments. So for ACT, SAT boot camp, we provided that to our districts as a way to get that extra practice that students need for college and career.
Excellent, excellent. And thanks for joining us, Chris. Just to share with the audience, Chris and I had an opportunity to meet each other at a conference, and as you heard, Chris, in the description of Idaho Digital Learning, we have a lot in common here at Michigan Virtual. And, I thought, wow, let's bring somebody in who's been using this program a little bit longer than we have and just get a little bit of a different perspective. So, Chris, how are schools in Idaho using this program? And, you're working as an implementation coach. So, what are you seeing?
Like I had mentioned with our online courses, we do mirror Michigan Virtual very well, and that I think we offer some of those similar courses. But then a great thing that I've had the opportunity to take on is going up to our high schools and providing those boot camps and setting those up for schools so that students can log in at any time and get that math readiness, that continued personalized learning to the steps of mastery throughout the state. And so it's been a great opportunity to see how teachers and students are using the data and information from EdReady in order to improve scores, as well as I think a big part of education is developing those relationships. So teachers are allowed to spend the time with building relationships with students while EdReady delivers that content.
Nice, nice. And later on in our session today, Chris is going to share a bit about that data and how schools are using it to improve their instruction as well. Let's move over to Jamie. Jamie, tell us a little bit more about NexTech High School and how your students are using EdReady Math.
Good morning, everybody. So NexTech High School is a blended high school, and we have a sister school in Grand Rapids, which is about an hour away from us, that operates in a similar model. We're a charter school, but a public charter school at that, and our students come for half days. So we have morning students and afternoon students. The school in its history has kind of been a little bit full some like bumps and curves in the road, as sometimes happens with charter schools, and especially this innovative model. So right now we have a very stable staff and a really engaged student body, and they work with us here on campus in sort of almost a Montessori model where we keep the student-to-teacher ratio 15:1. And then though, because we have such a small environment and they get to come half days, they have to do a lot more on their own and independent time outside of school, and then come back the next day ready with some experiences that they've learned on their own. And that has been challenging in math. And so that's kind of how we found this program to serve a need for a lot of the students here.
Yeah. So what feedback are you getting from those students? Are they telling you that they like it, or are you seeing any progress with them?
Yeah, the funny thing is so we offered it up to a certain set of kids at first to pilot it. We picked kind of a student profile that we wanted to try it out with. We introduced it to the students. We sent letters home to the parents, and then every student accepted it. And the students came flooding out of the math classroom, like to my desk, like, why did you pick me? I don't want to do this. And they just started, I was like, guys, hold on. Like, you haven't, like, first we picked students that had failed, like the A section of math. The hope is that they could recover that and get the B section done as well, all in the same school year, so they could start next school year without being credit deficient and without having to use summer school. So we didn't even have them take their final exam. We kind of said, the ship has kind of sailed on the course that you're trying to do right now, and we know that, and we want to catch you where you're at now. So how about you start this, and you'll learn more, but it's chunked out so nicely. We could tell them, how about you just start your first goal? It's kind of in Algebra 1A right now anyways. You're in Algebra 1A class right now. How about you show us what you got, and how you can kind of cash out in the stuff that you have and start spending time in the things that you need. So they get taken out of the core classroom. They didn't get taken out of the house with the teacher. They just got to access information and show mastery in a different way.
That's nice. So I just want to make sure that I capture this for everybody. So that your students are staying within their normal schedule, but yet recovering the content areas that they struggled in the first semester where they were unable to pass that first credit. So, that's great. I talk to a lot of schools, and I think that's what they're struggling with is, do I just have them redo the first semester all over again? Do I say, okay, well, we're going to put you in the second semester of Algebra 1, and then you're going to have to go back and do Algebra 1A in the summer? I mean, that can be really challenging for some kids if maybe they get a job or it's just not working out that, they can come back into the building during that time. Yeah.
Yeah, Tomas, I'll hop on my soapbox for just a second and I'll get back off it. So especially in math, when you engage a student in a content recovery versus credit recovery, you're essentially telling the students that you have learned something. Like the time that you have spent here is not wasted. Let's please just capitalize on the time we have and learn the things that you still need to learn. When you focus on a credit recovery option, you play Monopoly. Like you're telling them, don't pass go, don't collect $200, you're going all the way back. And you're stuck in jail until you get back, and the students just get to the same stopping point. Like you can imagine, like, I can only get here again. I can only get here again. And that process is repeated over and over again. So we were trying to stop that cycle of the student only getting 40% through a course or 40% through mastery. And it's, I think, proven to be really successful so far. So we've already had some students. It's not even the end of the school year yet, and they've completed all of the course with, our math teacher says it's not that they're just skating through, that they're working their tail off, and it's been working. So I've been really excited about that.
Nice. And as a follow-up question to that, how are you able to get, that teacher buy-in? It sounds like your teacher's on board with it. What was that implementation process to get them to say, yeah, let's give this a try. It's something different.
Delicate. Hey, I have this idea. Why don't you go check this out? Oh, it looks okay. Okay. So someone's coming in to talk to you about this. What do you think? And what if we only try it with some kids, like the kids that, are going to end up back in your classroom. They're going to have a feeling. What do you think? Okay, but you don't have to grade anything online, Susan. The system will do it. Oh, okay, no problem. I think that like all you need to do as a teacher is do what you do best, which is help the kids when they're stuck. Help them when they have questions. Help them through the math like you would help any kid. I think that when you say, here's this other system, it's like, what else do you want me to learn? Like, what else should I be doing? Now I got to do this other curriculum too, but it wasn't that, and it's not that. And it's so easy to monitor data. Like I think my admin team can see it, our school counselor can see it, our teacher can see it. So to be able to see how the kids are doing, but they're so engaged working through it was my fear that it really isn't adding any extra work on the teachers. And in fact, it's kind of probably taking a little bit away of work for.
That's great. That's great. Well, let's hear from the teacher's perspectives. There's that question about how they like it. Let's hear from the teacher's perspective and jump over to Marian with Janae and Heather. And again, first tell us a little bit about Marian and how are you guys using this program to support middle school kids?
A little bit about Marian. I think actually your description that you gave at the beginning was pretty accurate because total rural school, not a lot of students, a very pumped up, hardworking staff. And we have a lot of kids that a high population of free reduced lunch, so low income families, and sometimes not a lot of home support when it comes to schoolwork and doing things outside of school. So we just all pulled together as pretty much a really big family. And thanks, Jamie, because we're already getting some ideas, I think, of how to tweak a few things. So
yeah. So what methods are you currently using right now? And as Jamie was talking about, it's not something actually that you have to grade more things. And I looked up at the camera and I saw your heads nodding, we had buy-in too. How are you using it, to support your kids? And then I also want to make sure that we touch on and what other populations, because I think, it's just not your general education students that you're working with as well.
For our general education students, and there is special ed students mixed in, we have what is called a seminar class. And during that seminar class, there's multiple things that happen, but one of our days is specifically an Ed Ready Day, and that's what we call it. And so students are required to bring their Chromebooks to class, and they work on Ed Ready for that hour. It's about 53 minutes depending on the day. And we just continue to, push them through the goals. And like you said, it's not necessarily teacher-led, it's the students working on it. And we're just checking in with them, helping them like Jamie said, just helping them like we would normally do with the math. We are also using it to support our special education students. We currently have a student that came in halfway through the year and wasn't ready to jump into the second semester of geometry. So he's working kind of independently through his geometry using EdReady. We have a couple other students that aren't really able to do the Algebra 2 curriculum. So they're doing actually Algebra 2 skills, but at an 8th grade level in like an applied math course. So they're using it as special ed. And so that's working out pretty well. And I'll let Heather tell you another way we're using that.
Well, just because I think EdReady has given us an opportunity to really tailor some needs to kids that don't fit the general, middle school. I'm going through the middle school curriculum. And so, for example, we had a student who he repeated 5th grade, and he is now in his 2nd year of 6th grade, mostly due to truancy issues. And is a great mathematical thinker, but is just missing. There's so many holes in his mathematical background that he always struggled in math class. And so what we've done this year is we created a whole little class for him called Math Foundations, and EdReady is that's our springboard, and he has made huge gains this year, just working through it at his own pace. And he touches base with me, and I check in with him, just to monitor his progress, and that has been fantastic for him.
Awesome. What kind of feedback are you getting from your students and parents?
The students, most middle school kids aren't like, woo, math, yeah. And so honestly, when I did ask them straight up the other day, how do you think this is going and what are the benefits? And truthfully, they said some of the kids that are at a higher level, maybe in math and don't struggle, they have appreciated it because it gives them a review and it gives them another picture, another lens, I guess, to look through those math skills and those math concepts. And so they just feel it makes them more confident. And then there's other kids who, maybe they are still struggling with this concept that was, 3 months ago in math class. But when they work through the lessons that EdReady has for them, they just get a chance to kind of understand it a little deeper, or maybe get some extra practice in there, even though in actual math class, we're not focusing on that skill at that time. So it just helps them kind of secure their concepts, I would say. And then parents, we've talked to some parents, maybe not every parent that we're, doing EdReady. Some parents are really liking it because we had a student over spring break that came back and said, Mrs. McCrimmon, I finished everything. And she had worked on it through spring break. She wanted me to keep giving her the keys, and she worked through the entire program. And this is one of our high students, and they just were motivated by the program. I have 3 students that are in 7th grade that have finished it, even doing it just 1 day a week. They're just highly motivated and work on it outside of class, and they liked it, and they said that it was really helpful for them.
That's great. That's great. Our office is not too far from Jamie's school at NexTech of Lansing, and I stopped in just one afternoon just to visit, and she pulled up her thing and she's like, look at this kid, and just like without any probing or saying, hey, you need to get back over on your machine and get back to work, had independently just continued to keep working on the program and on their own. So I think that's really great that students are doing it. And I know our focus really has been about students that are at risk and keeping them on track for graduation. That's a common issue that I hear from many other schools. But what I think I'm hearing is that we also have, for some of our students that might be considered our high flyer students, or ones that are really want to stay engaged during time when they're even not in school, that this could be some excellent software for them to get in there and just practice what they know and gain that confidence that you said. And I think that's a great way to also utilize the software. Janae and Heather, you mentioned a little bit about seminar and having 50 to 55 minutes every day for them to work on it. I think that's excellent. Is there anything else that you want to share about scheduling it into their time? For the students that are special needs, are they Are they just working on that program during their normal, scheduled block hour for math, or anything else you want to share about that?
Well, it really does depend on the student. Kind of like we said, our general population in middle school has that seminar period for 6th grade and for 7th grade in which they work. Part of what has made that so flexible for us is, even though I am the 6th grade math teacher, I don't teach 6th grade seminar. There are 2 other teachers in our school who are not math teachers.
Okay.
But all they have to do is get those kids moving and grooving in their seminar class and Ed Ready, and their math support is there. So it's been very flexible for our scheduling in a small school that way. And I think with the special ed kids, it just gives them, sometimes because it takes them where they are and moves them forward from those skills, that's where we've seen some benefit for them, that, if they're working on it, even in like their study skills class, or next year we're looking at maybe having a resource room that will be more specific for those time frames, so that those kids are working on where their needs are and where maybe there's some of their special ed goals are in there.
That's nice.
And I forgot to mention earlier that we are also using it for some 8th graders that are advanced students that are taking algebra, but they're also required to take the 8th grade M-STEP, and so they have missed that 8th grade math curriculum. We actually have them completing Ed Ready, the 8th grade goals, so that they get all of the concepts that they're supposed to get in 8th grade that maybe have been skipped since they didn't actually have an 8th grade math class. And that's been really helpful for them as well.
Wow, you guys are rocking. And I just wanted to again share, like, this district here, and I had the pleasure of visiting up there. It is a small community, but, the school kind of comes together, as they mentioned, as a family of, less than 500 students, K through 12 there. So great job, you guys. Jamie, how are you guys scheduling some time for students to work? You said that they're doing their, Algebra 1B, their second term, and then, then they have to also kind of work on the concepts that they might struggle. Or you have scheduled time, or students working independently? And I know that you guys also have a flexible schedule at your school too. So tell us about it.
Yeah, we decided that we would just treat this as their traditional curriculum. And so it's their course, and they go to math class, and this is what they work on for math class. Mm-hmm. I really didn't want to create any type of like, well, you're pulled out and you're off to the side, and now grant, and I think that there's a lot of high school math classrooms that kind of work this way anyways, or like in a flipped or blended model anyways, where students kind of learns independently, and then the teacher provides that like coaching. It almost becomes the teacher does one-on-one support or group work or things like that. So they still engage with all of their peers and all of that. It's just where they demonstrate their mastery is just a different place than the other kids. So there is a chance that they're learning, maybe like if they're doing group work in class or a project, or the teacher's talking about something, it might be a little bit different than what they're doing in Ed Ready. But that's just the challenge of math classrooms now. And because we sort of work in, I stress out when I start to say any pace, but I just say like flexible pace. Like it's not any pace, because it doesn't mean you get to do a course in 2 weeks at the end of the semester. But as soon as go happens in math classroom, kids are kind of scattered. So that is one of the biggest challenges about saying like, okay, well, this kid is doing this, and this kid is doing this, and this kid is doing this. But that's one of the biggest advantages, is because really shouldn't it be this kid needs this, and this kid needs this, and this kid needs this. So we're looking at how to even expand this a little bit further. And I have picked Thomas's brain just a little bit. The thing that we are wrestling with is in Michigan, making sure that it's covering all of the core content standards, which it does, but it's that like with fidelity piece, and like just making sure that we could offer, how do you get the ABCD letter grade? And that's a traditional piece of the puzzle. And for us, it's just almost a philosophical moment, like, because the kids are showing 100% mastery over all the items. So does that mean that this kid, it's almost like it just doesn't fit what your brain wants? Like this kid that can't pass anything is passing algebra with 100% mastery in every item. And then you say, but that means he's getting an A. So that kind of, are you getting an A? So, like, I think changing that is almost a paradigm shift in all of our brains. So that's next for us. It's not really where they're physically sitting, but like, how does this transcript out, and how do we like expand this to make it more meaningful than just our handful of kids?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you both for sharing how you guys are using this in your school. I'm going to bounce back to Chris, and as an implementation coach, what are you seeing, or what are you suggesting to schools, as whether it's just your boot camps that you're doing, and how are schools in Idaho using these programs?
Yes, there we are.
Yeah.
Mainly with the boot camps, what the best success we've seen is when there's that dedicated time.
Yeah.
It's been nice in some situations with a couple of our schools that they're smaller schools, very rural, so they are able to be very flexible with how they manage and handle EdReady. And so they've been able to pull students out of their existing math class if they're at a certain level within that course, as long as they're at grade level, and they can come in and spend time within EdReady and getting a dedicated hour in on the program at least 3 days a week. The great thing too is they have a math coach there that will provide extra support for the students, because regardless of the best planning in the world, best catalog of resources, sometimes you need that face-to-face time with that teacher still. And so that combination has been really successful in having that dedicated time and that dedicated person.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you all for sharing that. Let's stick with Chris, and I'm going to have him share a little bit about the tools on the back end of this software, and quite frankly, any software that you're using, there's a variety of different data, but points that can pull out of it. But our EdReady Math one is definitely got a lot of really powerful data pieces that can help both support students and potentially drive change. So Chris, I'm going to just kind of throw a couple screens up here for you, and if you can explain what teachers are seeing on the back end and how they can use this information.
Certainly. So this is one of the teacher reports that can be pulled. This is the kind of overview of the entire group of students that have taken the initial diagnostic within this particular goal. So you can see how long they've been using the EdReady program, what type of growth. The one thing that I love is the color coordinating. These two students, the third student and the fifth student, actually dropped in points, and that's why it goes to the red. And so it's just a handy, quick overview: who's at risk, who is doing well, who to kind of give that extra coaching to.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we've got a lot of data within this overview. So this is an overview of one particular student. This is one of those students that did drop. So you can see on there what their score is, what's happened, how much time they're studying. This is a lot of data to pour through, but finding those key components that really show what a student is doing and what that reasoning is, has a lot of value with some of these reports. You can see the tables down below and graphs as far as information about when they tested, information like that. This is specifically what tests they've taken, which ones they've mastered, what their status is within the individual unit and the topic, and just kind of gives you that overview of when how much time they've spent on each of these. And then you can even drill down even deeper within each one of these sections and view the units that they've studied and the resources they've studied in order to get to this mastered or whatever status they are at the current time within the topic. Again, this is where you dive in and see exactly what I like coaching teachers or counselors, whoever might be implementing the EdReady program, to go in and see, if you have a student who's had a great rate of success within one of the units, and then you have another student who is still struggling, maybe make some recommendations, say, hey, I saw someone studied this resource. and that really helped them quite a bit. So I would suggest trying this resource and see if that helps you improve. So really building on that, like I mentioned earlier, that relationship with the students, knowing their scores, but then also knowing what they've had success with and how to apply that to another student. The great thing too is students can easily see where their progress is. This is a student view of one of the math units, and you can see they're quickly color coded for the teal color mastery, the red for not quite ready for that particular topic or unit, and they can go in and with the live version of the site, they can hover over each one of those dots and see exactly what that particular unit is that they're struggling with. And then when a student clicks learn, they go in and have just so many resources to choose from. Great ones that if they just need a quick hit because they need a quick piece of a video to have a quick reminder on a concept, they can watch one quick video. If they need in-depth knowledge, they can work through all the EdReady resources that are there, and gives a great structure for the students. The nice thing too is they can head right back in once they've gone through the learning section and retest on that material. Another piece of the data, this is back to the teacher or coach or counselor's view, whoever it might be in that role. And what I've really started trying to get across to them is they can use this for more than just seeing student progress. They can use this across their organization, across their school, across their district, and try to find those commonalities. Why do we have so many students that are not doing very well in one particular unit? So each one of these are banded by a particular topic within the unit, and so they can quickly hover over those on the live version and see, okay, this is the unit. Why is our school struggling with this so much? Or why are we doing so great? What is it that our schools do? This school over here is doing great, but this one over here is struggling with. So finding those commonalities between struggles and successes is a key to this table here.
Yeah, that's great information to share. And I'm sure curriculum directors and administrators would love to be able to share this information, across buildings or, between each other within the district. Chris, you mentioned whether it's a guidance counselor, a coach, or a math teacher, who are those important players that really can help, drive student success in using programs like this?
I really think it's one of those things where we have to start with the students. There's a mindset, and when you're talking about personalized learning, it's going to be self-driven. So really coaching them up on that is important. And so they're the ones, obviously, that can drive it the most. But having that teacher in the background that has the mindset that their role might have shifted a little bit with this, in that they are the ones that are interpreting the data and just looking at that information, but really building on that relationship and making sure that they know the students' needs, both social and emotional as well as content related. So having that coach in the background, and I started calling it a coach, but then it morphed into a coach and a cheerleader, because sometimes you're coaching them, pushing them along. Other times you're cheering them on for things that they've done well.
Mm-hmm. And Janae and Heather, and it's okay if you say you yourselves, right? Who do you feel are some of those people that are driving student success in Marian?
Okay, that's funny that you mentioned the cheerleaders, because Janae and I actually wore some cheerleading skirts earlier this year just to kind of visualize that. But so yeah, that's true. I feel like I think the number one important person is the kid themselves, and convincing them that they really are. You are the most important key player in any progress you are making. And what EdReady does is it really does show them kind of their strengths and their weaknesses so that they know how to hone in on what it is that they want to get better at. The teachers definitely, I think you're important, because if you don't monitor and you don't follow up and you don't do that coaching and that cheerleading, then the kid kind of gets disconnected and they're like, yeah, I'm doing this, but there you go. Whereas, if they have a couple bad days and you see they're struggling, or maybe they haven't spent as much time in there, you can just bring it up and say, hey, dude, look at this. What's up with this? What can I help you with? That sort of thing. And so the fact that everything is so recorded in what they're working on and the progress they're making, that helps you as a teacher, I think, monitor that. And like Janae said, we've had some parents that have really latched on to, this is something that is very useful for my child. And so they just support it also at home, which makes it all the more effective.
Yeah, yeah. And Jamie, real quick, if you want to share, I feel like we're gonna go around and be consistent with this because I've heard you say it in your building. But who are some of those important people for student success here?
So I'm going to say the worst thing is that, not that we forgot to check on them, but of all the moving pieces that we were doing, this pilot group, at one point in time, I said, oh my God, I haven't looked and to make sure, because like you guys are saying with the cheerleaders, and that's one of the dangers of running like a little pilot. I had logged in and everybody had been working, and I was like, what? And there was only one kid that I had to say, hey, it's been a week. And even still, like a week, that's not even really that bad. And it had been like a month since I checked in. How bad is that? So I wasn't even monitoring it. And they were so, I don't know if it was because like we said, hey, this is something really special. And this is like the cool opportunity that we're doing for you. And if that was it, but there's something about it that motivated them in this situation to just keep going. Like, I don't know if it's the way that it shows them in the little boxes, the little tiny chunks that they have to do. I don't know what it was, but similar to the spring break story, like it's just really easy for a kid to not feel overwhelmed that they're doing an entire course. And we see a lot of overwhelmed kids in high school nowadays, and like how like stressful everything is. So maybe it was just a breath of fresh air. But the most important people were honestly just them taking accountability for the learning and owning it and really being engaged to do it. There was nothing that we can do, no amount of cheerleading or anything that replaces that. So for me personally, that's the biggest aha I had.
Yeah. And by the way, Heather, I'm gonna grab that moving and grooving. So it's gonna be hashtag moving and grooving. That's what you guys are doing, is getting our kids, using the program. How are we informing parents, right? How are we telling them about this program? And we'll start off with Jamie. How did you communicate this out to parents as this is an opportunity for your kids?
Yeah. So I'll just like a little bit of truth bomb here. Like, high school parents are just really difficult sometimes to get engaged responses from. And so we did the, not sometimes, a lot of times. So, so we did the send the letter home and send it back if you do not want these supports for your kids. So a lot of times in a lot of interventions, that's what happens anyways. And so we inform them that way, and I send an email. So I was like, the letter's going to go home, and I'm going to send an email just so that like we're really clear about it. There was a couple of things about the pilot that we put restrictions on, so I wanted to make sure parents were okay with it. We talked to all students too. And as they've moved forward, like that's just sort of how they've operated, and they've just know that that's where their students' math curriculum is. The summer, how we've kind of been implementing it in the summer is a little bit different, and so that language is going out with like our 3 summer options. And Ed Ready is a lot like just a reduce the summer slide in math. Yes. And that's how the Ed Ready is going out. So I'm telling parents, hey, if you didn't feel like they're ready and you want them to kind of redo, or you like get really strong in the course that they just took, or do you want them to kind of get ahead and start to chip away at some of the content they're going to expect to show mastery in the fall? So like explaining to them, and I'm not sure that we are doing a great job of that yet, because the paradigm shift for us is still really new. So imagine that for a parent. So I'm going to start like writing some pieces on our social media page, kind of explaining what that is and the purpose. And we've just sort of said 30 minutes in math help over the summer will help your kid in the fall. And so we're just sort of saying like 30 minutes a day in math help is going to help. Just 30 minutes a day. They could do it from their phone. So if you're taking your kid in the car, have them put Ed Ready on their phone for a second and do a little bit of math. So we're trying to get that, but I've kind of had one parent say they want it.
Yeah.
So it's just
sometimes, yeah.
yeah.
How about in Marian? You know, what other ways do you plan on you know, using this program in the future? I mean, for both Jamie and for Marian, you know, this is their first year using the program. Obviously, two different targeted groups. So, what are your plans into the future?
Well, we're going to probably do a math lab next year, so that's going to be part of our daily curriculum in math. You know, they might be in stations and working with the teacher for part of it, and when they're in their independent station, they're going to be working on EdReady. So we're hoping to make it more of a daily routine instead of just a once a week. We're also going to implement it in our resource room next year, where our special ed students have that opportunity to fill those gaps that they maybe are lacking. And we were just talking about summer and how we can use it for that summer slide, and hopefully that doesn't happen as much, and offer it to the students in the summer. And maybe some of those struggling students could even stay on that, you know, the key that they were supposed to do during the year, and finish that up through the summer and be ready for the next year.
Yeah, we're going to have to probably hype that up, I think, because we were saying when we just got the checklist from you from our last webinar, yeah, we're going to have to kick that off and like really make the kids want to do it. So inspire them in some way that, yeah, you come back and we'll take a look at how you're doing. And I don't know, maybe there'll have to be pizza involved or something so that, yeah, they're a little motivated.
Yeah, that definitely works. And I'm going to share something at the very end to our participants as we're starting to wrap up here about some options for summer. But let's give one last question to Chris, and as we wrap up here, Idaho, do you guys have any future plans for EdReady? And I know that, you know, in one of the conversations that you and I were having, we were talking about EdReady English, and Michigan Birch is starting to engage in that as well. But if you have any future plans, you know, share those with us, Chris. Oh, mute again.
That's helpful, isn't it? With the English, we're actually getting ready to incorporate that in the future, probably in the next year, within 3 of our English courses, both as 2 particular units within EdReady per course. And also looking long-term for just a standalone course with the EdReady materials without additional content support that we create. So that's a little bit on the English side. With my face-to-face schools, we're delving into trying to figure out, more schools are starting to hear about the greatness of EdReady. And so we're trying to come up with ways to do credit recovery with some of that material. But then there you have we'll have some crosswalks that need to be done between, and it was mentioned earlier about Common Core. And so we'll have to look at Idaho standards and see that crosswalk there and delve into that. But I definitely like how you said earlier, Jamie, content recovery versus credit recovery. I think that's huge. And so I think it's a mindset shift for administrators and curriculum directors and teachers as well, as what that actually looks like. So, but those are the future plans we have in place so far.
Thanks. Well, I think we'll pause here for a second, and I'm going to look over to our moderator, see if we've had any questions in our chat. Normally I get a little signal like, hey, we got a question over here. But just giving our participants an opportunity to ask any questions. And we are a little bit over time, and I'm sure that's my fault. I love to talk. So we'll just get that. And while we're waiting for any questions to come in from our guests, I want to let people know, and I'll leave this up here for a second. And again, we're recording this. I'm happy to send it out, and I'm going to show you an opportunity that you can contact me directly. But we do have a demo that we've built up for schools that are interested in engaging in this program. And yeah, so I'm going to read a question that did pop in here. Could I set up a separate session to get individual questions answered? And the question is yes. So I'll have Nicole capture your information. Another way to, if you would like to have a separate session, you can contact me directly at tsoria@michiganvirtual.org, or you can go to our website and fill out a form there, and they'll also come to me. That's michiganvirtual.org/edready. I want to take this moment to thank all of our guests. You guys shared a lot of information, and I enjoyed today's conversation. just hearing the different ways that you guys are using this program. So I want to thank Jamie from NexTech High School of Lansing. Thank you very much, Jamie, for joining us. And we have, I want to thank Heather and Janae. Heather and Janae from Marian Schools, thank you. And Chris, I appreciate you joining us. It's, you know, probably coming up on about like, what was it, 8 o'clock in the morning, almost there. So here in Michigan, yeah, we're almost ready for lunch here. So, but thank you for joining us early from Idaho. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And as a couple of both Marian and NexTech mentioned, they're going to be using this program for summer. So we're happy to provide an opportunity for schools that are interested in using this program over the summer. But Michigan Virtual, we have several districts that are using this program over the summer to help reduce that summer slide, to keep our students on track for success in the fall. Quite frankly, a lot of our high flyer students really like to stay engaged in math and you know, just keeping that active mind over the summer. So contact us directly, and we'd be happy to provide you, you know, with the information that you need to get started. And we have some, you know, if you're a new school user to us, we can provide some opportunities for you over the summer to try it out. So we'll end with just leaving this screen out there for you guys. And if you want to write this information down on how to access the demo, and look forward to our next webinar. And thank you very much for joining us today.